Remember the turn of the millennium? There was all this hype, this fear about a global catastrophe that was supposed to shut down the entire world. It was called the Y2K bug. But then, the clock struck midnight, and nothing happened. So was it all just a big joke? Well, today, we're going to unpack the story of this digital time bomb and a victory so complete, so quiet, that a lot of people still think the threat was never even real. Let's get into it.
So that's the big question, right? Was Y2K the most overhyped non-event in history? Or was it actually one of the biggest technological crises we've ever faced? One that we just managed to solve in the nick of time? The answer, as you'll see, is way more interesting than a simple yes or no.
To really understand what was going on, we have to rewind the clock, way back. See, the entire Y2K problem, this thing that threatened the whole planet, it all started with something unbelievably simple. Just trying to save a little bit of space.
Okay, so you got to remember, in the early days of computing, memory was ridiculously expensive and super limited. So to save space, programmers came up with a clever little shortcut. Instead of writing out a full year like 1985, they just used the last two digits, 85. Simple, efficient, and for a long, long time, it worked perfectly. But, well, it had a built-in expiration date.
And here is where that ticking time bomb really becomes clear. So think about it. From the computer's perspective, the year 99 rolls over to 00. To us, that's obviously the year 2000. But to the computer, it had no idea. It was programmed to see 00 and think, oh, that must be 1900. And just like that, the computer thought time was about to jump backwards 100 years. That's the glitch. That's the whole crisis in a nutshell.
I know what you might be thinking. Okay, a date is wrong. Big deal. So what? Well, in a world that was becoming more and more dependent on computers for literally everything, that one tiny glitch, that two-digit mistake, had the potential to unleash absolute chaos.
And I mean everything. Imagine your bank's computer thinking it's 1900. How does it calculate your loan interest? What about power plants? Their safety systems rely on precise timing. Airline navigation, government services, defense systems, all of it was at risk. This wasn't just some annoying software bug. It threatened the very foundation of modern life.
So around the mid-90s, the world finally woke up and realized how huge this problem was. And what happened next was honestly one of the most incredible coordinated engineering projects in human history. It was a frantic global race against time to find and fix every single one of those two-digit dates before the clock ran out.
And the cost? Just look at that number. Some estimates put the total global price tag as high as $600 billion. That money wasn't just for hiring programmers. It was for replacing entire systems, for endless testing, for training, for creating massive backup plans. It was a monumental investment to stop a monumental failure.
So how on earth did they pull it off? Well, it was this massive three-step process. First, they had to find the problem. This meant people had to literally dig through millions, sometimes billions of lines of old computer code. Then they had to fix it, rewriting the code so it could understand a four-digit year. And finally, and this was maybe the most important part, they had to test it. They ran endless simulations to make absolutely sure the fixes would actually work when the calendar flipped.
And then it came, the moment of truth. As midnight swept across time zone after time zone, the whole world was basically holding its breath. And nothing. The planes didn't fall out of the sky. The power stayed on. The banks didn't collapse. That silence was deafening. And for a lot of people, that silence felt like proof that the whole thing was a giant hoax. But the truth was the exact opposite.
This right here is the whole point. The quiet of New Year's Day 2000 wasn't proof that the problem was a myth. It was proof that the solution worked. The disaster was averted not because it wasn't real, but because hundreds of thousands of people all around the globe worked their tails off for years to stop it from happening. Let me just say that again because it's important. The problem wasn't a myth. It was solved. Y2K isn't a story about mass hysteria. It's one of the greatest success stories of preventative action ever. The victory was just so total, it looked like there was never even a battle, and its legacy was huge. It forced companies everywhere to upgrade their systems and totally changed how we manage huge tech projects.
And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty heavy question for today. Y2K was a wake-up call. It showed us just how fragile our deeply connected world can be, how a tiny decision made decades ago could threaten to bring it all down. As our systems get even more complex, even more tangled up in our lives, you have to wonder, what's the next Y2K? And more importantly, will we see it coming in time?